So welcome everyone. We're here to look at part 2, or the issue of the women's obligation in Hadlakas Neres Chanukah. We spoke about the last time the general obligation, and the conclusion there was that there seemed to be two customs, Ashkenaz and Sfarad. In Sfarad, the head of the household lights one menorah, and again that's based on Shitas HaTosfos, in what the pshat of the Gemara of Mahadrim and Mahadrim was working off of, whereas the minhag of Ashkenaz is that everyone, or as we'll see tonight, what everyone means, but so to speak, everyone lights the menorah, adding one candle each night per person in the household. And again, that's the minhag of the Ramah, as is found in most of Bnei Ashkenaz. In order to take a look at this topic for women, it's actually quite interesting. If we take a look just as an introduction, if we look at the Gemara in Shabbos in source 1 here, and as again just two references. Number one, these sources that you see on the screen were also attached to the email. For a longer topic, this is going to be relatively brief. The screencasts limit me up to about 15 minutes, but you're all referred to yutorah.org, where Rabbi Mordechai Willig has a number of shiurim on the topic of women in Hadlakas Neres Chanukah. Anyway, the Gemara says, Isha vade madlika, that of course the woman lights, to Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Nashim chayavos b'ner Chanukah, sha'af hein hayu ba'oso hanes. The famous concept that women are obligated in Ner Chanukah, despite the fact that it is a mitzvah, it's a d'Rabbanan, but it's a positive mitzvah that is time-bound. Right? If you were to light Chanukah candles on any other night other than the nights of Chanukah, it would be worthless. That makes it time-bound. And women, nevertheless, are obligated because they too were involved in the nes. This is one of 3 mitzvahs that we find in Chazal, the other one being Mikra Megillah, which we will touch on a little bit tonight on Purim, and the Dalal Kosos of the Seder night on Pesach. What exactly is Afin Hayu Ba'osa Hanes? So I'm not going to read you through it, but I refer you to Tosfos here on the page. Famous machlokas, 2 different opinions, whether it means that the women were the cause for the nes, and therefore they should be obligated, which could be supported by the actions of Yehudis and the story of Chanukah, and obviously Esther and the Nashim Tzidkanios for Pesach, or if it's to say, no, Afin Hayu Ba'osa Hanes means even the women were involved in the nes, and therefore they were obligated, but it's not that they were the cause, but rather just because they were also saved, they too should be obligated in these mitzvahs. But again, the longer discussion of this Tosfos I leave to you here in source 2. What I guess really is interesting here is the Gemara seems to take it as a simple davar pashut that women light Chanukah candles. However, I imagine for those of you listening to this, that may not be so simple. In fact, in Klal Yisrael today, there are probably 3 different customs that are all valid, and we'll try to quickly get through the different sources for those 3 opinions tonight. Again, one being that everyone in the household lights, mom, dad, boys, girls, everyone in the family. Opinion number 2 perhaps would be that, again, these are only opinions for Bnei Ashkenaz. Number 2 would be that all of the men and the women except for mom, but the girls would light. And then finally, the 3rd opinion or 3rd practice, that none of the women light, just the father and the boys above the age of chinuch. So we will try to get to those opinions right now. We will start sliding down to source 9, again, if you're following along with the sheets, where the Shulchan Aruch says as follows: Kama neros madlik, how many candles are you supposed to light? B'leil rishon madlik echad, the simple halacha that on the first night you light 1, and mikan ve'elech mosif aholech, from there on you add 1 candle, echad b'chol layla, 1 each night, ad shebaleil ha'achron yiheh shmona, so that on the last night there should be 8. Va'afilu emrabim b'nei habayis lo yadliku yoser. Right, this is the halacha, the Shulchan Aruch of Bnei Sfarad, that it doesn't matter if there's 2 people, 5 people, 10 people in the family, only 1 person lights the menorah. Again, that is the minhag of Sfarad, which we're going to leave for now. Then says the Ramah, V'yesh omrim Techol echad B'nei habayis yadlik. No, there's another custom, and he says v'chein haminag pashat, and that is the obvious custom that kol echad v'echad, everyone in the family lights. The simple reading of this would be to include even the wife, the girls and the wife would seem to be included in the simple reading. He does say, just as a matter of fact, which we should do, I don't want to get too involved, but yizar litain kol echad v'echad neiros b'makom miyuchad. You should make sure that the candles are spread out enough so that they don't overlap each other. Kadei sheyeh heker kama neiros madlikin. So this seems to be the source, really, for the first opinion that everyone should light. However, opinion number 2, or practice number 2, right here, without going too far, comes from the Mishnah Berurah, because the Mishnah Berurah disagrees with what I just said, that the simple pshat would be the kol echad b'nei habayis. When it says that means everyone in the household. It says the Mishnah Berurah 4 simple words: lavad me ishto tehi kegufo, meaning that everyone lights except for one's wife, tehi kegufo, because she is like him. They were like one person, one entity, and therefore when the husband lights, he is yotze for his wife, and therefore the wife does not light. And there are many people in Klal Yisrael that this would be the practice. I heard in Rabbi Willig in his shir, he discusses that the idea here being that he even cautions whether or not, even though we will see in a few minutes in the next opinion, what about single girls? That single girls, if they do want to light, there is absolutely no problem with any chashash bracha. Again, not everyone in Klal Yisrael has that practice, but if one were to want to, there would be no problem with that. Rabbi Willig questions whether or not that is the same thing with one's wife, similar to the fact that if a woman were to light her Shabbos candles, a husband could not come along and light Shabbos candles in the home as well with a bracha. Again, he could light candles. He can always light candles before Shabbos. But she already fulfilled the mitzvah for him. So the assumption he made is that Shabbos candles are for the wife and Hanukkah candles are for the husband. And therefore the same thing would be. Obviously there are circumstances where if the husband's not going to be coming home late, so then you have to know what to do. And in many of those circumstances, the wife should light if the husband's not going to be home and coming home until very late. But practice number 2 is that everyone lights except for the wife. But the girls light, as it says in the Ramah, kol echad b'nei habayis. The only one that would be left out would be the wife, because really she's not being left out. She is lighting with the husband. When they light, actually, he is lighting for her. They're lighting together. Okay, so that is very quickly the 2 easy, so to speak, practices to understand. Again, either everyone lights, including mom, including women, including girls, everybody, or practice number 2, that it is only the father, the boys, and the girls that light, but not mom. Okay, now, with that said, we are going to move to source number 6, which is another Mishnah Berurah, where he quotes as follows. He says, "Va'ayin betshuvas Ola Shmuel." If you look in the tshuva of Ola Shmuel, "Dilididan shemadlikin kol echad b'fnei atzmo," according to our custom that everyone lights, "Mikol makom isha eina tzricha." Doesn't say she can't. It's important. She says she doesn't have to light. Dahavian rakt felos la'anashim. Their women in this mitzvah are somehow secondary to men, right? And therefore they don't have to light. V'im rotzim lahadlik, but if they want to, mevarchos, then of course they can make a bracha. Dahavi kashar mitzvah sheish hazman grama diachol mevarach. As we know, the minhag of Ashkenaz is that when women go out of their way to perform mitzvah sheish hazman grama that they don't have to do, they are allowed to make brachos. On the other hand, women of Sephardic background, according to most Sephardic poskim, they do not make brachos on the mitzvah sheish hazman grama. So what we're learning here would only be applicable to Ashkenaz, and again, for Sephardic it will not be applicable anyway, because there, as we said, even little boys don't light. According to original Sephardic tradition, only one menorah is lit there. But anyway, it says that Ola Shmuel, women are somehow tafel, they're somehow secondary, and therefore do not have to light. But of course, again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Kishayin ha'ish b'vayis, tadlik ha'ish dahave bas chiyuva. But of course, if this man is not home, then the woman can light, because she is a bas chiyuva. Meaning, let's not get confused. The Gemara we started with in source 1 says women are chayiv. So no one here, according to this, is saying that women are not chayiv, but they are not exactly the same level of chayiv or of chiyuv as men. And we're going to try to explain that in a moment. So the question really becomes, again, there are other details in the Mishnah Berurah, but we're going to run out of time. We're not going to be able to do that. What exactly is this? Does this mean that women are somehow tough, or that their obligation is different? After all, the Gemara does say that women are chayav in the very first Gemara that we read. So again, we're going to just take this opinion and try to do it a little bit quickly. But in order to understand it, we're jumping here to source 5. It comes from a famous opinion in the mitzvah of Hadlaka. Of Kriyas HaMegillah on Purim. We know that that's itself a big discussion what the woman's obligation is, but the opinion that the Shulchan Aruch paskins like is the opinion of the Bahag, who says that women are not able, Isha Motzia Imina Velo Anashim, that women can fulfill the obligation for their own kind, meaning for women, but not for men. And again, I'm not going to have the time to read through this paragraph, but it's all here in source 5, where Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, and then this is a famous idea that Rav Soloveitchik, the Rav, always had, and then Rabbi Willig and Rabbi Schechter and all of the Rosh Yeshiva speak about and say over, that the idea here is that there really are two parts to the mitzvah of Hadlaka. We'll come back to Hadlakas Neros of Kriyas Megillah. There's the actual obligation to read the Megillah, right, the Maisa HaMitzvah, and then there is the Persume Nisa, which is the idea of everyone coming together to be Mefarsim, to publicize the Nes. So the Chiddush of Rav Moshe Soloveitchik is, and again this is used to then explain that Ola Shmuel we just read, is that in fact women are not chayiv in the actual Etzem HaMitzvah, the Maisa HaMitzvah of Hadlakas Neros Chanukah. They are only obligated in the Persume Nisa aspect. Why? Women are chayiv sha'afin hayu ba'osa hanes, meaning the Gemara never intended to obligate women in the mitzvah the exact same way that they obligated men. They obligated women to be part of the mitzvah, to, in this case, go to shul, or in some way hear the Megillah, but they did not obligate them to read the Megillah. And based on that, Rabbi Willig explained that the same thing is true for Hadlakas Neros Chanukah, that women are not chayiv in the etzem Maisa mitzvah of lighting the menorah. They are only obligated in the Persume Hanisa, which is the Re'iyas HaNeros, the seeing of the candles. And Rav Soloveitchik also pointed out that that is the uniqueness between these three mitzvos of Afhin Hayu Ba'os HaNes. These are three mitzvos that are about Persume Nisa. These are the Persume Nisa, even Dalet Kosos as well. And the way you can tell, Rav Soloveitchik says, what mitzvos have this idea of Afin Hayu Ba'os HaNes and Persume Nisa is the bracha of Sha'asa Nisim Lavosenu B'Yamim Mahim Bazman Hazeh, which we know we say by the Megillah, we know we say by Chanukah, and Rav Soloveitchik had an explanation even by the Seder, even though we don't say that bracha formally. We do say the bracha of Asher Ga'alnu, which is a similar idea if you read through the text. So in any event, just because we're short on time, essentially what comes out from this opinion, again, I encourage you to look at these sources more in detail and to listen to Rabbi Willig Shir, but this is a basis to explain this opinion that women are not actually obligated in the act of lighting the menorah. Again, they are in the parsha, and that's the idea of it. And how come they're able to light for a man, right? If a man is not home, a woman can light. So Rav Soloveitchik explains that because they are in the parsha, and as we know, this mitzvah is not an obligation on any individual. It's, as we explained in the previous year, a mitzvah on the bias, a chovas ha-bias. So therefore, a woman, and perhaps even, again, we don't have time now, even a katan shehigia lechinuch, as the Shulchan Aruch over here, down here, mentions, it could be even possible that a katan shehigia lechinuch could even light the menorah for a family if nobody else was able to do so. So again, either everyone in the family lights, or everyone except for the mom lights, or according to this, even none of the girls should light. And here in the Piskei Tshuva, so that is the three opinions and the three customs, and obviously everyone should consult her Rav and her family custom as to what the proper custom should be.